Okay, hi everyone. We're just getting started here with the 4D Method 4D in Wakanda user group meeting for April 23rd, 2015. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little bit about the group and go over some 4D news from Jim Sobczak and myself, and we'll get some news on Wakanda from Shang Liu, and we'll then look at some new interesting tech tips on the 4D knowledge base, and we'll have our special topic, a closer look at user-defined constants for 4D. Jim Dorrance, or Dorrance, how do you prefer?
Dorrance is good.
Dorrance will be presenting to us. Then we'll have some general questions and answers, and then we'll wrap up. Again, welcome to everybody. My name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4D Method 4D in Wakanda user group. Our website is 4dmethod.wordpress.com, and we can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. This group is put together to combine efforts with other user groups around the world to bring together a scattered community of developers and users. Something we're trying to involve everyone in all time zones as we have today, with Jim in presenting to us from Paris. We're streaming all the meetings via Google Hangouts so that people can tune in from anywhere, and all of the recordings will be available on YouTube and via our website, so that they can be reviewed at any point in time in the future. And we hope to provide fresh new content and exposure to all the regional groups and people who are interested in 4D and Wakanda, and who use it and who develop with it in the future. Right. We have Jim Sobczak here from 4D, who is the VP of Sales and Services for 4D, and also is the OEM account manager for large accounts here in North America. Jim?
Can you see us okay, Brent?
Yep. I'll just give you guys percent. Okay.
Welcome. We are in the conference room here in San Jose office. Have Brian from our marketing department. You guys know Sean. And this is Tim Penner from 4D Support. So, and I'm Jim Sobczak, and we wanted to thank you, Brent, for inviting us into the Hangout again. So I have a few more people just in case questions come up that I can't answer. So I'm ready to start when you are. Do you want to do your slides, Brent, or?
Okay, sure. I'll put those back up.
Okay. Great. So we'll start with the world tour. We actually launched the world tour March 22nd, so it's well underway. Our first stop was in Praha, Czechoslovakia, and that went well. And then last week we did 2 shows, one in Copenhagen on the 14th of April and one in Stockholm on the 16th of April. And then yesterday we did Brussels. So far we have 4 shows under our belt. We talked with the presenters yesterday, and the shows in Copenhagen and Stockholm went really well. Fantastic feedback from the 4D developers in attendance. They all stayed for the second day training and had some great comments and feedback about that. So it's well underway. It's going as planned, actually better than planned. So, and here in the U.S., we start our show 3 weeks from yesterday. Our first show will be in Chicago, of course. It'll be on the 13th, and then after so these are the slide there shows where we'll be for the next 3 weeks, and then we do training. I want to talk a little bit about trainings too. So there will be. Can you go back one, Brent?
Sure.
Thanks. So there's a training in Chicago the day after the World Tour. And the World Tour, as you know, is free for all the 6 days. The training is $5.99 for non-partners and $2.99 for partners. So we're having a training in Chicago on the 14th, and then we'll have a training in New York, which is actually New Jersey, on the 21st, and a training in San Jose on the 11th. Okay, next slide would be great. All right, so these are the World Tour topics. They're available on our website, 4D.com, under, all you have to do is click on the World Tour logo banner, and you can see quite a detailed display of what we plan to talk about. And yeah, so as you see, we're talking about V15, which you all know is in beta now. I'll discuss that a little bit later, but V15 is in beta, so some of the demos that are on the USB key that we'll be handing out to all the World Tour attendees do require V15. So we're pretty excited about that, and I'll talk about the R releases a little bit later when we talk about 15 and the beta. So, but yeah, so those are some of the things we'll be talking about in the World Tour. The World Tour will be presented by JPR, whom you all know, and then Adcoman Rensri, who is the Director of Technical Services. So the next slide would be good, I think. Unless you want to go over. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So, before we get off of the tour, I just want to mention the training. The training topics are different than the World Tour topics. The training is intended for advanced to intermediate 4D developers. The topics are under the events section of our website. You'll see everything listed there that's going to be covered in the training sessions. So onward and to our 4D releases. So as you know, we released version 14R5 in March 25th. So that is a full-blown release now. It's the first iteration of 4D Pro. Brent, did you want to go over these, or do you want me to go through the?
Either way, if you'd like to keep going, you're doing a great job.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Before you launch into that, I just want to correct one thing. You were saying the training was under events. It's actually under support.
Under support, of
on our
course.
website.
Thank
Support
you.
training.
Support training for the state-of-the-art training done by JPR. Okay, so V14R5 is out. I can't say enough about how successful the R releases are doing. Everything that we had planned 2 to 3 years ago for R releases is coming to fruition now. We have a lot of people using R releases. If you're on the forums, you'll see that we're getting feedback almost as soon as we release an R release. We're getting feedback immediately. And these are production-ready releases, well tested. The features that we're putting into R releases have been tested. They're available for use for maintenance. And we're hoping that everyone on this call, at least, has access to those R releases. So it was our first iteration of 4D Pro. We called it a preview edition because we didn't feel like it was quite ready for production. So now that is a finalized version in the beta of V15, but 4D Pro will evolve over the R releases. So all of the features that will be in 4D Pro are not in either R5 or beta, but the two newest features, HTML email and compatibility with previous write documents, is in the V15 beta. And of course, the 64-bit product line for Mac OS, which I think 4D developers have wanted ever since I've been working at 4D. To have a 64-bit server on Mac OS is pretty amazing. So we're so happy that that's ready. In R5, it was a preview. In beta, it's actually in the V15 beta. It's actually the final release of the 64-bit server for Mac OS. And all of the plugins are 64-bit compatible in the V15 beta, including Internet Commands, 40-pack, OCI, and ODBC Pro. The new network layer, of course, is in V14R5 and V15. Long name. If you have any questions about any of the features, long names for form objects, I think that just gives us more characters in a form object. The display coordinates of a list box object and toolbar. Anyway, there are many more features. These are just
right. These are just a subset of specifically certain things that were highlighted in R5.
Mhm.
And we're very excited about the 64-bit product line for Macs. We're starting to test with that here at the museum as well. So,
Nice.
yeah, we'll be moving to that this year ourselves. Okay.
That's great. Okay. And then V15, I think I already started talking a little bit about the beta. We do plan to go with the final product in June. V15 will be released. And again, as we said it pounded into your brain for the last year and a half, V15 is really nothing more than V14 R6. So if you've been on the R releases for these past few months and you're moving to V14, it's really just an incremental jump of about 3 months worth of features. So there's no .0 thing, oh, it's a big, huge version now, I really have to test it. No, it's not that way. For people on our releases, this is going to be nothing more than an incremental jump. So we're really happy about that, and we feel that because R5 is very solid and production ready, that you'll be able to move to V15 if you're on maintenance with very little work. Of course, for people who are just using 14, like the .x, .2, .3 releases, V15 will be a major new version with all the features that we've released over the last year and a half. Okay, and there are some of them. LDAP support, I think, is huge in V15. The default data file, I believe that's where you can actually say which data file you're moving to when you launch V15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's in the merged applications.
Right. And just a few of the features in V15.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah, we're also excited for the code in Unicode. That's there's big demand for Unicode everywhere here at the museum with all kinds of different languages for the artists and artworks and whatnot. And there's a lot of other new stuff in R5 and in V15 for us that we're looking forward to. So, okay. And next we have some Wakanda news from Xiang. Be careful there, Xiang. Somebody's looking at you.
Hey everyone, this is Sean from Wakanda Tech Support. So I'm bringing some Wakanda news to 4DMethod user group. As a lot of you might know, Wakanda 10 is launched earlier this month with some exciting new features. I'm just going to break down. I have a list right here, but it's not in the slides, so it's just me talking. So one of the new major new features is the JSON object attribute. So that's consistent with V14. We had it in V14 for a while. Now Wakanda's catching on. So you can store an object as attribute in Wakanda, in 4D, and of course in 4D mobile that can be carried over too. And yeah, the object attribute is indexed and is searchable and can be directly referenced. So in JavaScript world, it's even easier. You just ... Yeah, everything's dot notation. So it's very easy and very fast.
And that's Wakanda 10.
That's Wakanda 10. Okay. Yeah. And it would be official. It used to be in V10 beta. Now it's moving to the official release. And the second thing is now for Wakanda servers. Well, for deployment, now we launched Wakanda Shell application that's dedicated for Windows and Mac. So now you have a command line tool. You can just run and just control the Wakanda server in command line with that with the command line tools.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. So now we don't have NVMe or the Linux users. Now we have the same thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third thing is we used to have Angular Wakanda module as an independent module, so you can develop Angular front-end applications with Wakanda. Now it's included in Wakanda 10 as well, so it will be native, and what's sitting behind it, we're going to continue to support and make it better. So that's another thing. And
if I can stop you 1 second. So Brent, I hope someday in one of the 4DMethod user group meetings to show you how how Angular fits in with Wakanda and what we've done with it.
That would be really cool. I would definitely be interested in seeing that. And and I think in our next meeting we're looking at having some more 4D mobile presentation as well. So it's that would be great.
Yeah, good.
Cool. Okay. The next thing is LDAP support. That's the same thing. 4D has it, and now Wakanda has it too. That's the same thing. We want to be consistent. And the final two features are related actually. The next thing is now Wakanda supports JSON import and export, so you can export your data file in JSON format in one chunk, and the import is in the same fashion. And with that built in, now we updated our cloud as well. So Wakanda Cloud has been updated. We're still in beta. But has been dramatically updated. We've moved all the entire platform to V10. We've added all the features, including you can now import and export your data, and now we've added monitoring API, a statistic API, everything. And then now I think a lot of you may have see the email. Now we integrated the Docker, which is a current popular tool. It's an open source container virtualization platform for cloud. It's designed for cloud.
Okay.
So that's not visible to the users, but that's something we use in the back. So that will make our platform even faster. I would say it's so basically what Docker is just a templating image. So we build our kind of server on the container in a certain OS, like say Linux or something like that. So in a certain OS with images. So whenever there's a client requesting the instance of Wakanda, so the Docker can help that build a container, build an OS, and distribute it very quickly. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's being used a lot now. So the team choose to use it with some successful use cases like Yelp, like eBay, like out there. Yeah. So
All right,
yeah.
cool.
So this is a new fairly new tool, but it's been working quite well for most major companies out there. So we'll give it a shot. Yeah. Yeah. Those are the kind of news from me. Yeah. If you have any questions.
Yeah, is the Wakanda Cloud, is that being hosted at 4D Central there, or is it being hosted elsewhere? Yeah.
I'm not sure about the 4D Central.
AWS.
Uh,
The cloud is on
It's
Amazon
Amazon.
Web Services.
Amazon
yeah, it
Web
is.
Services.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for the Wakanda update, and again, we'll be looking forward to seeing some more Wakanda in action. And I think it would be really neat to walk through a project and then see how easy it would be to put it up on the Wakanda Cloud and get it live. As we watch. So that would be pretty cool for our next meeting.
Yeah, I know we have several hundred beta users on the Wakanda Cloud beta right now. They have their apps up there. So.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Now we have just a few recent tech tips that I made note of from the 4D knowledge base. Again, this is just a subset. There's always new ones coming in every couple of weeks, and there's just a wealth of information in the knowledge base if you're just starting or if you're a long-time developer with 4D. The first one is adjusting the font size on a form in runtime using the new command that was introduced in 14R5, form get objects. In previous versions, you could pretty much blanket set font sizes, and you could list all the objects that you would want to set the font properties for. But this makes it really easy for it returns a list of the variables on the form, and then you can test the types of them, and also retrieve the font size so that you can increment them up one by one or decrement them, even though all of the fonts might be different sizes for the various objects on the form. So anyways, check it out. It's an interesting tech tip. The next one is using PHP preg quote function to escape a string. Again, this is just a little canned utility using a PHP command to escape a string. For instance, for use in a URL, or perhaps if you're running a terminal command, a command line command. There were previous ways to do this. We're kind of crafty using XSLT as well from something that Miyako had posted. However, we'll be needing to migrate away from XSLT, or we'll be able to do the XSLT transformation with PHP as well, but this just gives us another option for easily escaping strings without coding it all yourself. Next, we have two utilities that will count occurrences of fields contained in a string. Again, it's just another good utility, a couple of good utility methods for searching strings that are safe to use with Unicode when you have a lot of Unicode in your content, because sometimes you have to be a little bit more careful with how Unicode works, and the fact that one character could be represented by several characters. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it can be tricky. Next, we have getting started with 4D transition tags. Again, the XSLT commands are being deprecated in V15, and will be, if you're using those capabilities, you'll be interested in transitioning that code to 4D transition tags. 4D tags, the new 4D tags anyways. That's just that there's new capabilities using 4D tags for being able to use 4D commands directly from a tag template. Again, very interesting content there, and it's going to be very powerful for updating interfaces in 4D in your 4D client server or standalone application, using some templating in your forms. We use it actually here at the museum for some very basic print jobs. Just we create we push a bunch of data out into an XML, and then translate it into a web page that people can print. But so we'll be looking to do some stuff with that here in the near future. And then there was a nice tech note using SVG and a list box, which is showing, which has a graphic column, a picture column, a picture array in the list box, and it's able to show a quick little status bar that you can update. And for instance, if you're uploading files or such thing as that, or you have multiple processes running, it will be able to show a nice graphical representation of that in the list box. So check them out. There's always good stuff on the knowledge base. It's good practice just to check in every now and again and see what's there. Without further ado, we have a special topic, 4D user-defined constants, a closer look at how to create your own constants for use with the 4D development environment. Jim Dorrance has been a long-time 4D developer from the very early days, and he'll be able to give you more history on his experience. But he's worked with 4D in France, and has had a lot of inside knowledge and insight into how 4D has evolved over time. And recently there's been some talk, there was some chatter on the Nug about either using pseudo constants that were stored in variables, process or inter-process variables, or using your own user-defined constants. And what is the best approach? What's everybody doing? And so we'll be talking about that today. Jim?
Yes, hi. I've just got to find the button to push. I think I found it. Screen share. Entire screen. Okay, let me know you can actually see something.
Okay. Just see your picture right now.
Just give me a feel.
There we go. Yep, I think
You
that's
see
your
something?
screen.
Okay.
Does everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Sounding yes. Okay.
Great.
I'm what's called an oldie but goodie, and I was a fashion photographer in Paris in the 70s and 80s. And when 4D came out, I started using it immediately because it was actually a bit of a success story, because I made a database of all the advertising schedules of all the fashion magazines in the world, so I knew when to send what picture to get a job. For example, Vogue Italy did a special on hats in April. That meant in January, end of January, I sent a picture of a woman wearing a hat. And so that worked very well. And since it was a very small family at the beginning, I'd find myself calling 4D, it was called 4D at that time, at 12 o'clock at night, and Marianne or Laurent, someone would answer the phone, and we essentially met, and I essentially started hanging out there and when I wasn't working, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to be part of the family at the beginning when I wasn't working as a photographer. One of the times I was working there, I worked with a man named David Hamo, who was developing the constants for 4D. And essentially the constants were just something borrowed from the Pascal language, which was used at the time. And essentially you define your constants. At the moment your code is compiled, the constants are replaced by the value. You can consider the constants as an attribute and a value pair. Okay, so what's the advantage of that? Why not just use the values? Well, I'm sure we've all done this at some point, but some people just decide that why not say V holiday is equal to Christmas? But what are we doing when we do something like that? Essentially, we're asking 4D and the computer to reserve a little place in memory that will be addressed with V holiday and hold in that space Christmas. So already we're asking something to the computer that involves getting some memory, using that memory just to write the word Christmas from time to time. So the advantage of the constants are, at the moment of compilation, the token is replaced by the attribute. And if the user does not call an execute statement with one of these constants in the execute statement, there's absolutely no need to keep these things in memory. Okay, so what are the constants? The constants are a string array that are charged before your application is charged, before your, and are kept in memory, aren't available. They're tokenized, they're available in the Explorer, and it was very, very easy to type K holiday and have Christmas or pop up. This was before variables were tokenized. And secondly, these arrays are not needed in a compiled database. So instead of having 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 variables, we can reduce significantly the size of the variable table. I'm just going to show something here quickly. Here's a demo base that was made for V14 for ACI. I'm going to go into the structure. I'm going to just try to run. Now what I want to show here is my variable table. Unfortunately, these are the things that have to be done fairly quickly, so I do use, but I either use some interprocess variables, but quite honestly, that's not a huge number of variables, or I will use process variables occasionally. And actually, most of the process variables are 4D's process variables, like OK, etc. I have one or two T label. Okay, so I'm saying that by using constants, and you can really dramatically reduce the size of the variable table. Some people are fond of saying that makes absolutely no difference with modern computers, memory, et cetera, et cetera. But I've been I've headed teams that have had 13, 14 developers, and 13 or 14 developers, each responsible for their own modules, et cetera, can slow down a 4D database. If everybody just keeps adding variable after variable after variable, and you're working with multi-process and client-server and remote, it does eventually make a difference. So that is a little bit what these constants are. Now, when I worked at 4D, I sort of tested this for David Hemo every day. And essentially, the idea behind it was to create something in 4D, essentially to create a 255-character string array that would be charged in memory when 4D started, and the items would be tokenized. And the items would be replaced with the attributes when the base is compiled. And an extremely basic concept and implementation. And at that time, things were done in the resource file with string resources. So you could actually enter the constants manually with resedit, or you could write methods that would generate these files for you. And essentially, what does it look like? We can take a look at one here. Here's one from 4D itself. Here's from the FEEF13. And you can see that the constants are organized in XML. It's organized with a notion of group, and for each group, units, elements. So here's a group that's called, apparently, the name is XLF editor. Oh no, here it is. The group is called country names, and in this group, country names, they have an ID, which is 1, a res name, and a source and target. Of course, this looks very familiar to XLIFF localization files. In other words, they're using essentially the same mechanism. And so what's interesting is not only an named attribute and value, it's also an ID, attribute, and value. And why do you need an ID and a res name? Why an ID and an attribute and the target? Is because there are some methods left over, some routines left over from 4D from earlier times, like stringless to array. And with stringless to array, in the old days, you would just pass the res ID. In other words, what would be the res ID? In other words, in the old days, if we were using resource files, you would pass the res ID of 1120, and you would get a list of all the country names. They've guarded that possibility, which is extremely useful in some situations, but they've also added the possibility of recovering something by the group name. So if I needed an array of all the country names as defined by Cat4D, I could pass either res ID 1120 or country names to get index string list or whatever it was called. So essentially, that's the construction of these things. Okay. Of course, 4D. If you have any questions, because I just get going, I don't stop. So if you have any questions, please interrupt. Okay, 4D, of course, has a way of doing these things. It's their 4D pop, which is quite useful. But at the same time, those of us who have coded for a long time just prefer to do things in a method. You know, we can copy, paste, duplicate, etc., and go relatively quickly. So let me find a base here. And here, first of all, I'll show you a method that will generate one single case file. Essentially, what I need to do is I've got to define. I got to say I'm going to create a document. So here, essentially, I'm going to open create a document, and I'm going to create the group element, and then I'm going to close the document. I'm going to close the body. I'm going to close the file, close the whole thing, and get a reference. Write the headers. So now I've got an empty file. Okay, and now I'm going to use these predefined areas in an empty file. For example, the group and the item areas, and I'm going to fill them up with values. Here's something that's really quite simple. I do an awful lot of SVG, and I can never remember the orthography, the way of spelling these colors. So essentially, I'm going to receive, this is a method that's going to add some text to this file. And I need to know the root and the res ID, and I need something to count things, and I need some families, which could be considered as groups, and I need some values, and etc. So essentially what I'm doing, I'll talk it through. I'm going to make a large array of constants, and I'm going to add the index, increment the index by 1, and I'm going to add an attribute and a value. So here I'm creating something that's called SVG color none, and its value, which is understood by SVG, is none, and it's a string. Here I'm going to create various levels of gray, etc., etc. Here are the official names needed. Okay, so that once it's done, once you've picked these things up from the internet and filled out this thing, you're good for a very, very long time. And of course, these things are tokenized. So if I know, for example, it's very convenient, if I know I want to do something, I need an SVG color. I'll just type in there they are. I've got them all. Extremely practical. Okay. So let's just change the color of none to Toto, which is something that people are all the time. Okay, after I've added this element to the file, I just have to close the file. And since the constants are charged when the database is started, I have to restart the database. This restart, you can restart 4D automatically, a standalone client server. It's not such a, some people complain about it, but it's really easy. So I'm going to run this. And here is my database. But before we go there, I want to look and see what we've created. This is the thing I'm working on now. And these things are stored in the resource file. And I don't see it. 1636, no, it's from before. Oops, I messed up somewhere. Resources, core link, Spanish. I know it's not that base, I'm very sorry. That's not that I'm not working for those people. I'm working for these people. Here it is. Demo, today, 1938. That's the time here. Now when I open this, I'll open this with a text editor. This is good. We can see then I've got my group. My group is called SVG colors. And within this group, I've got all those things that I defined. And I think what 4D Pop is wonderful, but I would not have wanted to enter all this manually. Okay? Especially since I'm going to be adding lots and lots of other constants. And here we can see, yes, here is one. The value is Toto. For this value of none, the value is Toto. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to enter in the vase. I'm going to fix this so I'm not left with that forever. What did I have? Case. SVG color. Okay, so I'm going to change that to none two. I don't know why I put this in for a reason. I also have a method I won't bother with you now. It's not a problem, it makes sense actually, but if there are two constants with the same name, 4D doesn't know which one you're really talking about, so it will take the first one. So I put this in double to show you that eventually, if I run my toolbox, it will say there are two values for this constant. So I'll remove that. And I'm now just going to take the real one for this base to show you that sometimes you get a lot of stuff in there. All the variables I would have loved to create it without, if I didn't worry about just having two huge variable tables, I just create them in constants because I know when the moment comes to compile, all this is no longer necessary. So I'm going to run this. Don't know what's happening there. Oh, voila. Oh, it's an error. Okay. I did something wrong. Okay. I sort of played around a little excessively trying to prepare this, but it's worked for 15 years. Okay. So let me open this. Are people following me a bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to say, what good are all these constants? Well, first I want to show what. Let me show you. Case. Let me show you what I do on load. Case, toolbox, on startup. Essentially what I'm going to say is I'm going to get, if it exists, if I have a constant file, and if I'm compiled, I'm going to delete it. If not, I'm going to rebuild it. So, this is all handled automatically. And if I run case, we will see that it reboots automatically also. So, as we can see here, execute on server, restart, or else open data file. So that's handling dynamically whether these things are needed or not. Okay, now what to do with these things? 4D has introduced something that is extremely interesting but a little difficult to manage, and that's the notion of form variables. Is that the official name, form variables? I call them form variables because their life is the appearance of the form. When the form loads, they're available. When the form unloads, they're no longer there. And let's just take something simple like a splash screen. There's a splash screen. Now I'm going to have to make something. I've got to make a form. And in this form, I'm going to need a few things. I want a background. And this is an object. But I'm not going to create a picture and have this picture declared as a variable, which will be available for every single process. I just need it when this thing appears, if this thing is used. So I'm going to create a form variable that is called, what do you know? It's called a constant. Now, why would I use a constant? Because it's really easy to understand what's happening. I have a constant, apparently. These are the objects that I have on my form. I guess I've got an application icon. I've got an application name. Okay. Yes, it's a constant. But it's a constant that contains a text. So I can place that there, I just copy the constant and paste it there. I can also use the constants for other things. For example, let me get the back on, oh, it's on the next page. I've got this thing here, this label. It is the app name. And look, this is an XLIF with a constant, the same constant. So what I've done here is I've said I've got something that's called the app name. Let's see where it's used. It's declared here, and it's here. It is also, apparently I don't see it, but it is also on app XLF. I'm going to use these things I'm going to use these things as the attribute for my XLIF. Ah, yes, the same thing is there, is good for the values also. So I have created one object which is going to disappear as soon as it's compiled. I'm using it in a form. It will only, the memory is only needed when that form is on the screen. And this constant is also used to identify the object and fix the XLIF. So what have I done? I found the way to start to handle all these form objects that I'm going to do. And I wrote something a little simple, very simple little thing, toolbox, form object, text set. And for example, if I were to do that, oh, excuse me, do the get. I also have a way of getting these things manually, like in the good old days. You know, when you say, you know, my label is equal V label, or what is my... So, what have I got? A naming thing for form variables. This name can be used to create XLIFF. This thing can be used as a selector. Let me see if I have a tendency to name all my things app OM. Let me see, app OM. Because sometimes, unfortunately, 4D will sort of forget some of the scripts attached to objects. But that's something else. No, I don't. But here's something. Here I'm working on the, this is a work in progress. And here you can see that very often I use this constant, which represents an object or an XLIF, also as a selector in my OM. What did we click on? The column 1 splitter line? Where is that? So all of a sudden I have a control over all these objects. Oh, apparently it's something here. Ah, voila. There is my color 1 splitter. It's just a line. But I know its name. I know how to. And I can use this constant to set all its attributes, get all its attributes, etc. So you can work out a way to use 4D and 4D's form objects conveniently. You can control them rather going what is where, etc. Okay, that's why I use these things. Secondly, I think it's a bit pretentious of people who use 4D, who have been using 4D forever, and understand very clearly that it's always been case of on load, or on menu selected, or on something. They've been using constants. They have existed since the beginning. 4D has always used them. It's a mechanism that's completely, that works. It works. Why reinvent something and all of a sudden just add all sorts of potential complications? So that's why I believe them very much. And I do the same thing with XLIF. What else have I said? Selectors, XLIF, form objects. Oh yes, I made a little thing here just to show you how absolutely wonderfully convenient these are. For example, if you're doing, imagine you're doing dynamic web pages and you're needing to access 200 strings. Instead of calling get localized string 200 times, you could charge all the XLIF into memory, into one array. Or you can charge all the constants into an array. So instead of making repeated calls, I can access an element of the array with the indexed. Here, I'm just going to show you this. So it maintains the old things that were really useful back then. I don't think I have this string here. If I don't have this, no, there's 160 elements in there. There they are. They're all there. They're all there in my array. So in other words, I can charge a local array, have everything I need. If I wanted to continue the old way of using variables and stuff like that, I can use a local array, get the stuff in very quickly. This is handled by the system. This works. This is something they have to do quickly, and they do it very well. This is the basic way things work. So why not use it? And here's one. I don't know if there's anything in this one. I think I took this one out. Yes, there's nothing in that one. So let me go back and look at you guys to see if there are any questions about all this. There, I should show window. Google Hangouts.
Yeah. I have a quick question. So the string list to array, that's one of the resource commands in 4D.
Version 3, version 4, version 5, etc., etc. Yeah.
Right, right. And I know that there's been some changes recently with those commands moving forward about being deprecated, or maybe it's just certain capabilities of those commands that have been deprecated.
We're obviously not encouraged to use resource files in the case of resedit and things like that. No. Right. But however, I must say one thing. 4D continues to use the old resource file. They do the best they can, but they have not updated everything. If you take your current, you just look at 4D, you just open 4D somewhere. Let us find, I must have 4D world here somewhere. Here's a 4D 13.5. Well, let's take a 14 and see how things are here. 14, let's open it up. Let's see what's inside. You're allowed to do this, I think. Oh, they've got a resource folder. Okay, what's in this resource? Oh, look at that. That's a resource file. Okay? 4D uses the old, in some circumstances, perhaps for backward compatibility. But as long I feel, at some point I will no longer use stringless to array. Okay, because I can get them individually.
Right.
But since it's there, and since 4D continues to use resources, there's the possibility that they use it to optimize speed. I'll use it. The day that it doesn't work, I've got another way to do it.
Just one other question. When you use the constant as the form object name, so if it's a string constant, are you saying that for a text object on a form that it will fill the text with the value of that constant?
No. It's something extremely simple.
So that's
for example,
code.
If we were to say 4D's unload, okay, as actually, I don't know, I think it's 1 or 2, it's some number. That constant is defined as an attribute, which is always a string. It's a name, onload. And the value associated with this attribute is 1, a long int. That will not work. In the form editor, 4D is not going to interpret the constant, but what I do is something extremely simple. I will say, I'm going to make a constant that's called Christmas. The name is Christmas, and the value is Christmas. Okay? That way, When I approach it in the method, it returns Christmas. When I ask for the index string, or not the index string, the localized string, and I pass Christmas, I will get the localized string that contains whatever it is, Noel in French. In other words, the container and the contents are the same.
Excellent.
They're both strings. They're both equal strings, so I can use them interchangeably. When I need a constant, instead of writing the name between quotation marks, instead of saying this, I have a constant named Christmas, and its value is Christmas. That would be written Christmas between quotation marks, and it will return Christmas as a string. Okay, I don't have to worry about the quotation marks. I just use it. Try it. It takes about 30 seconds to try. Take a constant that's a string constant, any of 4D string constants, that returns the name of the constant. That solves a major problem with form objects is, do I need a name for the object and another name for the XLIF? No, I use I use the constant as both name, as both attribute and value associated with the attribute. So,
Okay.
it's worth trying because that simplifies one of the major headaches with the introduction of form variables.
Would you also speak a moment to the once again to the memory usage between, say you had thousands of constants, string constants stored in an XLIF file and accessed in that manner
and used dynamically. They are loaded and used. If the system needs a certain element, it knows how to get that specific element immediately. It's the way computers work today. The way 4D developers work is occasionally, let's put everything in memory for every process, even if we don't need it. So essentially, I've worked on bases where they've got 10,000 variables. If they think, and unhappily, many developers will just say V Christmas is equal Christmas, V Easter is equal. They will create 1,000 memory places, 1,000, they'll create 1,000 variables, each variable needing a place to live, and each variable using this place to live for a process, whether they're used or not. And that takes memory. Other people do it a little bit more, perhaps intelligently, perhaps not, I'm not sure. They will make an array. But then there's the question of addressing the index. Which array element was Christmas in? And then they start another thing with with N Christmas is is the index number 3, or something like that. And so essentially to conserve memory, they've just added more things. Basically, what are these constants? It's it's a string array, 255 characters. It was in the past. I imagine now it's a text array. Okay, with an element for each constant. In other words, it is, if you needed 100 things and you do them with variables or constants, the occupation in memory is probably less with constants because they're array elements. Okay, and each element is, okay, you know all that. So it's, if you needed the variables and you decide to use constants instead, you're not going to be needing any more memory. You'll probably be using less memory. Plus, you have the option to get rid of those things. Plus, they are not duplicated for every process. If you create a variable and you're in multi-process, every time you ask for a new process on the server, things have to be duplicated. Things have to be created. These constants are loaded somewhere special when 4D starts up. And so it's actually much more, intelligent to use constants, then you don't see 4D redefining on load for every single process. It's not necessary.
One more question, and perhaps either you or the folks at 4D can answer. Do you know if the string length is limited in the same manner when you use an XLIF file? As in,
I don't know. I put some pretty long things in there. What is limited, when I showed you the method, the name of the constant is limited to 31 characters. Okay, here's a case, and here you'll see in my method to define them, I get the substring, and essentially I'm saying if it's greater than 31, the name must not be greater than 31. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that 4D has recently changed the maximum length allowed for a variable name to 255. Perhaps they will do it here, but I don't really believe it's necessary. You know.
Mm-hmm. Have you had some experience using Unicode in the XLIF files? I assume it works fine, given that it's
well, you just gotta put it in. You know, you just got to put it in. You know. I actually use Unicode fairly often as graphic characters. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Since you know, I'm returning a string, so I can, you know, I can do character this, character that. I can construct the string using either, you know, ASCII, Unicode, whatever, you know.
Right. So in older databases, it might have been a way to sneak Unicode into the development environment using Unicode in the constants, in the XLIF constants.
That I don't know. That I don't know, but I imagine so.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I use Unicode now to define a certain number of graphic elements, because you know, us old timers, we used to design custom fonts, font families. I don't know if you remember that. We define special font families and draw each little letter and use our font family to put in graphic elements into an array, for example, to go very quickly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I continue to use that instead of loading an image into a picture array. I will use a checkbox or I think. Let me find that. I think my checkboxes are usually Unicode characters.
Ah, okay.
Because you know it's a little difficult. It's not difficult, but why?
Right.
Yeah.
We had a couple of questions earlier. Sorry, it was my bad. I had clicked on the wrong slides when Jim was doing his talk, but I think we've got I've got it under control now. Does anyone have any other questions out there to contribute?
Well, thank you for putting my picture there.
Yeah, of course.
Web is Dorrance.eu. Oh no, that's not photos. No, there's 4D Dorrance EU, and there's some freebies there, and there are things that are interesting. Yes, right. That's very good. It's worth clicking on.
Yep. Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions. I don't see any more currently. So thank you very much for the
technical people have left. Oh no, he's back. Good. I hope I didn't offend the technical people, because at one point I was tech director at 4D in Paris. So I know we can be a bit sensitive.
Well, no, I think it. Your demo just showed how powerful that the constants can be, and some of the various different uses.
Last thing, what a photographer does, he looks until the message becomes simple. He goes yes, no, very quickly. And I've worked on some bases that are unbelievably complicated, so I'm constantly fighting to make it simple. And this constant thing, for me, is what's used in the industry. It's like XLIFF. It's used. That's the way it's done. The system handles it. Once you can figure it out, it works.
Right.
Yeah.
As one of my 4D developer friends likes to say, keep it simple. It'll make itself complicated later.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention we also are heavy users of user-defined constants in 4D.
Very good.
At the Art Institute, we have over 5,000 constants defined in our system, and I put together a short YouTube video if anyone is interested in seeing a different way to use the constants, and we actually have a small small table to coordinate how they're used, and so yeah. So if you're interested, check it out at the user group website under the About page, and click on 4D at the Art Institute of Chicago. As well, there's a few more videos there showing our application and stepping through things. Yeah. So, any other questions from anyone out there?
Nothing here. Thanks, Jim. That was an interesting demo. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Compliment. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, and stay tuned for our next meeting. We're going to focus on Wakanda in the next meeting, and visit our website to see when that's going to be planned. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Bye.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye-bye.